Well, good afternoon. I want to welcome you all to Reed Chapel on the campus of Samford University. My name is Beck Taylor, and I am Dean of the Brock School of Business, and I want to welcome you to this installment of the Dean's Leadership Series. Our guest today is Mr. Bill Johnston, past President and Chief Operating Officer of the New York Stock Exchange from 1996 to 2002, and he was President during the events surrounding September 11th, 2001. Mr. Johnston also served as Senior Advisor to the Chairman of the Exchange from January 2002 to December of 2003. A member of the Exchange since 1964, Mr. Johnston was a Director of the New York Stock Exchange from 1992 to 1996, serving a stint as Vice Chairman. He has served on numerous committees such as the Market Performance Committee, the Personnel Committee, and the Compensation Committee, and the Financial and Operations Surveillance Committee, as well as the Exchange's Executive Committee and the Quality of Markets Committee. Mr. Johnston has also chaired the Subcommittee of Floor Facilities and was Director of the New York Stock Exchange Foundation. Bill Johnston was President of the Floor Member Outreach Committee, a member of the National Organization of Investment Professionals, and Treasurer and Director of the Cancer Research and Treatment Fund. He has also been a Director of the Securities Industry Association, the Securities Industry Automation Corporation, and the National Organization of Investment Professionals. He has served on numerous higher education boards, including the business school boards at Pace University, Emory University, and the University of Richmond, and he's a trustee emeritus of Washington and Lee University, his alma mater. Bill is very active in the Omicron Delta Kappa Foundation, and his visit with us today is in part possible because of our local Samford chapter of ODK. And I want to specifically thank Dr. Betsy Holloway, who is our chapter advisor here on Samford's campus, as well as the National Director of ODK, for her specific support of this event. Mr. Johnston graduated, as I said, from Washington and Lee University in 1961 with a BS degree in Commerce. Bill has been married 47 years to Elizabeth Moore Johnston. They have 2 children and 2 granddaughters. We are so happy that you could be with us here today, Bill. I know we've worked you extremely hard over the past couple of days, and I appreciate your graciousness as you've shared your experiences and your history with our students, with our faculty, in various venues here on campus. I appreciate your flexibility, those of you who are in attendance, for the change in venue and coming to Reed Chapel. I promise I won't ask you to deliver a sermon today, but I might ask you to preach a little market discipline if you would do that for us. So welcome. Let's all welcome Bill Johnston. I appreciate your willingness to allow us to discuss a wide range of issues today, Bill, and I'm going to ask a few questions, but I want you to feel free to take this conversation anywhere where you think it's important for this audience to hear. And then I also want to make sure we leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end. I know that there will be a lot of questions for you toward the end. First, would you tell us a little bit about your educational experience, and specifically, what did you study? Tell us about your college experience, and specifically, did you ever think that you would have followed the career path that you ended up following?
Well, Dean Taylor, first of all, let me say it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to meet some of your very bright young people on campus and in the Brock School. Nice group of kids, really, truly great group of kids. My education, you've mentioned Washington and Lee. I am a second-generation graduate of W&L, following in my father's footsteps. And by the way, I followed in his footsteps into Wall Street as well, which we will probably talk about in the near future here. Prior to that, I had gone to a boarding school, away to school. I was one of those that had a pretty quick idea, Dean, of what I wanted to do. I worked summers in Wall Street. I worked for friends of my father's. And as to my education, I made a huge mistake. I took all business courses. I didn't take any non-business courses. So I don't know the difference between a camel and a mammal. I don't know anything about science. I'm not terribly good on literature. And if I had to do it over again, I would tell students that a school like Samford get the broadest education you can get. Don't specialize. There's time for that later. So take lots of different subjects.
Yeah, that's good advice. You mentioned your father. Tell us what your father did on Wall Street.
Well, he was also a member of the New York Stock Exchange, but liked to do long-term investing rather than the day-to-day sort of Atlantic City-like, Las Vegas-like trading that I did on the floor of the stock exchange. Dad was a very conservative, long-term investor.
What kinds of summer jobs did you hold down on?
Oh, I started as a mail boy, and I worked on the floor as a runner, and then I worked posting trades. Computers didn't exist in the dark ages when I was a little boy, and so you hand posted all of your trades, you hand posted all of the commission bills, and you did all of that P&L by hand.
What was your first job out of college?
My first job out of college was go back to graduate school. I started on an MBA at Stern School at NYU, and Uncle Sam came calling, for those of you that are old and gray like me, for something called the Berlin Call-Up in 1961. So I went to a lovely place called Killeen, Texas, at Fort Hood, and stayed there for about a year. I came out, got out of the service, and got married a week later, and that was the end of schooling. That was it.
We shared our joint thoughts about Killeen, Texas. It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from Killeen.
Oh, it's real close.
In your early professional experiences, early jobs, after you got back out of the service and began your career, and you reflected back on your education, you've already mentioned that you would have done things a little bit different. What other experiences or learnings did you take from those early jobs that might be of use for these college students today, many of whom are business students, by the way, who are thinking about careers, investment track careers?
Well, for those of you that think you're going to start at the top, you aren't. So just relieve yourself of that notion. And I would say to all of you, the two great pieces of advice I could impart to you is find a job, and you can have 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, but find a job that you can be passionate about, a job that every day you're excited to go to work. And then find a partner that you can be passionate with. The smartest thing I did in my entire career was finding my wife in college. Had I paid more attention to my studies, I might have done a little better, but it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, good. Well, today we want to talk, obviously, about your experiences on the exchange. And specifically, when we spoke by phone several weeks ago, you mentioned that you thought it would be important for you to talk about the, quote, 2 worst days of your life. And I took that to mean October of 1987 and September 11th of 2001. But before we kind of get there and also talk about today's market and what's going on in markets over the last several weeks, tell us a little bit more about the New York Stock Exchange as an organization. What is it? How is it run? How is it governed? What kind of organization is it?
Well, it has changed immensely, Dean, since I walked out of the door in 2003. It is today a public company with its stock listed on the New York Stock Exchange and run like every major corporation is today, with a board of directors, with shareholders, and learning from and listening to the constituents that make up the exchange. In the days when I was there, it was a membership organization of 1,366 seat owners. And in fact, there were seats on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, drop-down little like trolley car seats that you could perch on if you needed to at any given time of the day. And in those days, it was run as a not-for-profit institution, so that all earnings went into a fund which was basically used for the advancement of technology. Today, like every major corporation, it's a for-profit institution.